Hello. Please hit like button and subscribe my channel. Also press bell icon for future video notifications. Thanks.
Animal collective behavior reveals itself in often mesmerizing visual displays of swarming insects, flocks of birds in flight, and schools of fish pulsating underwater as a single unit. Now, researchers report they found a possible reason for a peculiar display of collective behavior from fish shoals in Sulphur Springs in Mexico, deterring predators. The results appeared yesterday, December 22, in Current Biology. Study author and Leibniz Institute of Freshwater Ecology and Inland Fisheries behavioral ecologist Julianne Lucas explains to the scientist that sulfur mollies, Poecilia sulphuraria, gather in large shoals at the surface of the low-oxygen springs to avoid hypoxia. There, they're ripe for the picking by predators such as kingfishers, kiskadees, and other birds. When presented with a threatening stimulus, these carpets of fish, as Lucas describes them, repeatedly disturb the water in a wave-like fashion by diving down for a few seconds, triggering their neighbors to mimic their diving behavior. Lucas and her colleagues decided to investigate why. The team created attractive hunting perches near fish schools from which predatory birds could watch and attack the fish shoals. Between April 2017 and 2018, the researchers videoed more than 940 attacks by birds on the shoals. Finally, they tracked attack success, whether or not the bird indeed captured a fish. In the beginning, it was really just documenting what was actually happening. Which predators are there triggering waves? When do we see this? What sort of fluctuations are in the system and dynamics? Says Lucas, who recalls being surrounded by the smell of rotten eggs every morning when arriving at the Sulphur Springs. But to really pinpoint that the molly's wave-making behavior was not just correlated with the predators, but actually caused by their presence, we really needed an experiment. In a second phase of research, the team focused on the effect of the wave behavior on one predator, the kiskadee pit. They chose this bird because it hunts in little swinging attacks where they don't actually hit the water, explains Lucas, and thus doesn't typically induce wave behavior in the fish. This enabled the researchers to observe its behavior both when molly waves were experimentally present and absent. In our system, we could really disentangle the waves from the actual predator, and really show what happens without and with the waves, she says. They also compared the kiskadee's behavior with that of the kingfisher, Chlorocheral americana, as recorded during the first phase of field observations. After waves were produced, the average waiting time between attacks for kiskadees and kingfishers doubled, suggesting the waves could prompt predators to delay their next attack. Furthermore, when the birds saw more experimentally induced waves being produced, their attack intervals increased and the probability of successfully catching a fish decreased when compared to control experiments where no waves were created. The kiskadees also increased how often they changed hunting perches when waves were more frequent. Kingfisher bird with a sulfur molly. Julianne Lucas. It's not just fish that engage in wave making. Some flying animals, such as birds and bees, do it too. Guy Beauchamp, an independent animal behavioral researcher who has studied collective wave behavior in birds and who was not involved in the study, says the researchers' experimental approach, including their measurements of wave frequency and waiting time between attacks, was strong. What's most impressive in the study is that not only could they measure these things properly, but they could initiate experimentally these waves by using the slingshot and seeing how it affected the predator behavior. Lucas tells the scientist that while the team cannot confirm an adaptive, if this was purely escape behavior, they would not voluntarily bring themselves back into reach of the predator by returning to the surface earlier than they need to. In addition to escape, another possibility, the authors write in the paper, is that the wave behavior acts as a signal to the pred. Escape almost certainly evolved first and the others secondarily. Lucas adds, however, that predator confusion as a cause would be very difficult to assess. Beauchamp also notes two areas in the research that could be explored further: examining the effects of different predators and different conditions and looking more deeply into prey behavior, including whether individual fish could benefit from collective waves without participating in them themselves. There was a lot of variation in the waving behavior, Beauchamp writes. And we know from their results that there was a lot of variation in the density of the fish at the surface. It would have been nice to see if changes in these traits in the prey would have affected the predator success. Lucas says she plans to investigate some of these points, including whether mollies might react differently to different predators. She also wants to examine how information progress. The group's results could also be relevant to other animals such as birds and bees that participate in collective wave-making behavior, Lucas notes. Whatever we learn here, we can then also go back to other systems and try to see if we find the same evidence. It is really just the starting point. Please support my channel to grow by pressing subscribe button and the bell icon. We will notify you technological news. Thank you.